In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, praise be to God, Lord and cherisher of the world, and may God send His peace and blessings upon Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and those who rightly follow him until the day of judgment. Amen. Allahumma salli sallam baraka ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi sallam. Now they're boasting that Aqsa Chowdhury is making basically more commotion in Britain. So the way they word this article to make it seem like he committed a crime, but all he did is advocate that Muslims returning from Syria back to England should not be arrested. He didn't advocate that the Muslims returning from Syria, when they go back to England, that they should start committing terrorism in England. No, he didn't say that. He didn't say, you know what, they should come back to England and start blowing people up. He didn't say that. If he said something like that, by God, that would be something to charge him with. What did he say? All he said was he believes these Muslims coming back from Syria should not be arrested under the new anti-terror law. Wow. Imagine this. Imagine you have people in your country flying over to another country to defend people who are being butchered, and then when they come back home, all you said is you advocate that these people of yours should not be arrested, since all they did is leave the country to defend people who are being butchered. If that's all you advocated for, should you be arrested just for advocating that? The answer is no. Number two, they keep talking about how Aqsa Chowdhury, he didn't condemn the Lee Rigby stabbing. Well, I want to ask you something. Did you know there's many hardcore Jewish preachers who advocate for the extermination of all Muslims and all Palestinians? Did you know that there's many hardcore Christian scholars who advocate for the extermination and genocide of all Muslims? There's many people of every race and religion who advocate for the extermination and complete genocide of all Muslims. What are they called? It's a word that everyone is familiar with. Racist people. Hello? Racist people exist in all places and ages. Racist people exist in all places and ages. And they keep talking about the Lee Rigby stabbing as if that is the only stabbing that took place in the world in the last 50,000 years. Oh, Chowdhury didn't condemn Lee Rigby. Oh, Chowdhury didn't condemn Lee Rigby. Come on, give me a break. A few years ago in Afghanistan, an American soldier terrorist, yes, an American soldier terrorist, I call it like I say it, like I see it, like I read it on the article. An American soldier terrorist, a few years ago in Afghanistan, he went on a storming spree and he killed about 16 Muslims in Afghanistan. What did they charge him with? They charged him with being mentally insane, and they did not arrest him. Are you kidding me? An American soldier terrorist can kill 16 people in Afghanistan, and he's not charged with nothing. Why? He's mentally insane, supposedly. But Aqsa Chowdhury, you keep bringing up how he didn't condemn Lee Rigby. He didn't condemn Lee Rigby. Well, how many people among the American people and their Western allies, how many of them condemned the American soldier terrorist in Afghanistan a few years ago who killed 16 or 17 innocent Afghani people under the pretext, oh, he was mentally insane? How about the American soldier terrorist a few years ago in Iraq who raped and killed an Iraqi girl who was 14 years old, and then he burned her, and then he burned her family and the house and the remains, and he was put in a facility in America, and eventually he hanged himself, I believe sometime this year. He eventually hanged himself because he didn't want to spend life in prison. in America? How many American people, along with their Western allies, condemned that? How many? That's what I'd like to know. We talk about Obama. We talk about Obama being appalled at the beheading of one or two American journalists by ISIS, supposedly. I want to know if Obama and his American puppet regime, if they condemned what that American in Afghanistan did a few years ago, and if they reimbursed every Afghani person's family who was killed by that American soldier terrorist. I want to know if Obama and his American puppet regime, if they condemned that Iraqi a few years ago who raped that 14-year-old Muslim girl, and then he burned her and he burned her family. I wonder if Obama and the American regime condemned that, and if they reimbursed their families' relatives tons of money for that act of genocide. Why isn't that world news 24/7, day after day after day? So one or two American soldiers supposedly beheaded, because I don't believe it happened, but let's just say it did. One or two American soldiers supposedly beheaded by ISIS. That's going to be world news for the next 10 years. But an American soldier can rape and burn the remains of an Iraqi girl along with their family. Burn them to pieces. And that's not world news for 10 years, let alone 1 month, let alone 1 week. But we keep hearing ISIS beheaded 2 American soldiers, as if 2 American soldiers are worth more in the eyes of God than 1,000 dead Muslims. Is that the case? Is that the way it works? Is 1,000 dead Muslims rubbish compared to 2 dead Americans? Is that the way it works, Obama? We are not dehumanizing any American soldier being beheaded for no reason. But all we're saying is non-stop media coverage, non-stop gibberish media coverage for supposedly American soldiers beheaded by ISIS, which I believe is fabricated and fake, in an attempt to have American people's blood get boiled so they can support their own American government bombing Iraq and Syria. Non-stop coverage for that. But for the dead Muslims, no coverage for that. No coverage for the dead Muslims being butchered by American soldiers. No coverage for the Americans. No coverage for the Muslim bodies that are being butchered by U.S. drones and Israeli drones, along with their allies. No coverage for that. Only coverage for the same 2 American soldiers who were supposedly beheaded by ISIS. Israel tomorrow can wipe out 1,000 Muslims under the pretext of, well, they have to defend themselves. Israel can kill 1,000 Muslims tomorrow under the pretext of, well, they have to defend themselves. But that will be world news for 10,000 years. But one Muslim kills an American, that becomes world news. One Muslim kills a Jew, that becomes world news. But a Jew or an American kills 1,000 Muslims, that's only news for 2 minutes and that's it. Let's go back to ISIS. ISIS this, ISIS that, ISIS this, ISIS that. As if there is no other greater terrorist organization than ISIS. Isn't America a greater terrorist organization than ISIS? Isn't Israel a greater terrorist organization than ISIS? You say, oh, but ISIS beheaded 2 American people. Enough of the baloney stories. I said, even if these reports are true, let's look at the facts. ISIS, if the reports are true, let's rephrase it. If the reports are true, ISIS killed 2 American soldiers. Now you might say, hey, that's our people. We're not saying that's a good thing. We're saying let's look at the whole picture. If ISIS killed 2 American people, okay, that's a bad thing. Let's see what Israel did. Israel stole Palestine. Israel is massacring Palestinians by the thousands. The hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are homeless. More than 3 million Palestinians had to flee Palestine to this present day. None of them were reimbursed. None of them were reimbursed for their homes, nor for their businesses. So many Palestinians had their water being stolen by Israelis. So many Palestinians had their crops being stolen by Israelis. So many thousands of Palestinians have been homeless. Does that equate? Does that equate to 2 American soldiers beheaded by ISIS? What was done to the Palestinians? Isn't that way more greater an atrocity than what happened to those 2 American soldiers? Now, the brainwashed American people will say, no, a crime is a crime. A crime is a crime, and evil is an evil. One evil in one place is equivalent to one evil in another place. I beg to differ. Let's rephrase that story. Let's rephrase that story. Suppose it was an American who beheaded 2 Muslim soldiers. Suppose it was an American beheaded 2 Muslim soldiers. And with that respect, suppose a Muslim country stole America from the Americans. And in this country, in this parable, this Muslim country is going to be equivalent to what Israel did to Palestine. Suppose a Muslim country stole America from the Americans. And suppose a Muslim country evicted more than 3 million Americans from America. And suppose a Muslim country stole the water and the crops and the trees from the Americans. And suppose the Muslim country occupied the Americans. And suppose that same Muslim country occupied Americans in America and told them when they can go to work, and told them when they can go to school, and told them when they can go to the marketplace. And suppose that same Muslim country stole 85% of America. And suppose that same Muslim country bombed American schools, American hospitals, American parks, American churches. Now, are you going to say that the American who beheaded the American that beheaded 2 Muslim soldiers, are you going to say that's basically equivalent, as the same evil, that's basically equivalent to the Muslim country that stole America, that bombed America, that stole 85% of American soil from America? Are you going to say that's equivalent? If a Muslim country stole 85% of America from America, are you going to say that's equivalent to one American killing 2 Muslim soldiers? Are you going to say that that's equivalent? The answer is no. So how can you dare say that, well, ISIS beheaded 2 American journalists? How is that equivalent to Israel stealing more than 85% of Palestine and occupying Palestine and bombing Palestine hospitals, bombing Palestine schools, bombing Palestine parks, bombing Palestine church, Palestine mosques? And now they want to divide, basically they want to steal the 3rd holiest mosque of the Muslims in Jerusalem, Al-Aqsa Mosque. Al-Aqsa Mosque. They want to steal the 3rd holiest site of the Muslims. They want to steal, the Jewish people want to steal the 3rd holiest mosque of the Muslims under the argument and pretext of, well, the Jewish people like that mosque too. They consider it sacred too. And suppose the Muslims considered the Vatican Church sacred. Can they bomb it and steal it? Suppose the Muslims considered the Vatican Church sacred. Does that mean, suppose the Muslims considered the Vatican Church sacred, does that mean the Muslims can forcefully take the Vatican Church and divide it in half and say, listen here, Pope, half of the Vatican Church belongs to you, and we're going to take the other half of the Vatican Church for the Muslims, whether you like it or not? Will the Christians be happy with that? Will the Christians be satisfied with that? The answer is no. I repeat, if the Muslims told the Pope, we're going to take the Vatican Church whether you like it or not, and we're going to divide it 50 for you and 50% of it for us, are the Christians going to be satisfied with that? The answer is no. The answer is no. The Christians are not going to be happy. They're going to be furious. So how can the Israeli Zionist Jews even consider debating about the Aqsa Mosque being divided, half for them and half for the Muslims? Isn't it enough that Zionist Jews stole 85% of Palestine? Isn't it enough they bombed Palestinian mosques and hospitals and parks and United Nations buildings in Palestine, which belongs to Palestine? Isn't it enough that the Zionist Jews are stealing water from the Palestinian people? Isn't it enough that the Zionist Jews have committed acts of genocide in Palestine? Isn't it enough that every country in the United Nations Parliament, every country except one, said that Israel committed acts of terrorism? Israel is a terrorist state. Isn't it enough proof that so many non-Muslim countries have boycotted Israel? Not just Muslim, non-Muslim countries as well. Isn't it enough that non-Muslim countries have boycotted Israel products? Isn't it enough that Israel is the most hated country in the world except for their ally America? Isn't it enough that Jewish rabbis are speaking out against them? As many Israeli people are speaking out against them. Many Israeli soldiers have quit their own government and they refuse to serve in their own government. Isn't it enough that many Israeli commanders quit being commanders of their own Israeli government and are speaking out against them? Isn't it enough that there are many Israeli people who used to work for their own government and they quit and they're speaking out against their own government? Isn't it enough? Isn't it enough that, I repeat, isn't it enough that many people in America that used to work in the American government are speaking out against Israel? Isn't it enough? I repeat, isn't it enough that many people worldwide are protesting by the millions against Israel? Isn't it enough that Israel is being told by United Nations? United Nations said, let us come to Israel and we're going to set a group of delegations to work for United Nations, and we want them to be in Gaza to be witnesses to see which side are committing acts of aggression. Which side are committing acts of aggression? United Nations wants to be in Gaza as witnesses, and Israel refused. Why did Israel refuse? What do you have to hide from? What do you have to hide from? So Israel is stealing the third holiest mosque of the Muslims. They're stealing the third holiest mosque of the Muslims, inch by inch, step by step. And what is the Muslims going to do about it? They have to at least speak out. And the non-Muslims, just like the non-Muslims, want to shout cats and dogs. Oh, ISIS killed 2 American soldiers. Oh, ISIS killed 2 American soldiers. Oh, let's bomb Iraq Look what ISIS did. They killed 2 American soldiers. Oh, let's bomb Syria. Look what ISIS did. They killed 2 American soldiers. America, it's enough for America. It satisfies America. All it takes is 2 or 3 American journalists to be beheaded by ISIS. That's enough for America, for them to support their own government, to bomb the whole country of Iraq and to bomb the whole country of Syria. That's enough. Okay, America. Okay, Western allies. What about the pirate state of Israel? They want to forcefully steal the 3rd holiest mosque of the Muslims, Al-Aqsa Mosque. They want to steal it by force. First, they're doing it in a diplomatic way, supposedly. Oh, we just want to divide it. Half of the mosque for them and half of the mosque for us. What's wrong for that? We love the mosque too. We consider it sacred too. If the Muslims consider the White House sacred, can they tell the White House, listen here, White House, half of the White House for you and half of the White House for the Muslims? We consider it sacred too. Can the Muslims do that to the White House? The answer is no. Can the Muslims tell the Pentagon, listen here, Pentagon, half of the Pentagon for you and half of the Pentagon for the Muslims, because we consider the Pentagon a sacred place for the Muslims. Can the Muslims do that to the Pentagon? The answer is no. Can the Muslims tell the World Trade Center building, listen here, Christians, we want half of the World Trade Center for you guys and half of it for us, because we consider it sacred too. Can the Muslims do that? The answer is no. Can the Muslims tell the Hindus, listen here, Hindus, half of your sacred Hindu temple for you and half of the Hindu sacred temple for us, because we consider it a sacred place for the Muslims as well. Can the Muslims do that? The answer is no. Can the Muslims tell any sacred church or any sacred synagogue in America, in the world, listen here, people, listen here, Jews, listen here, Christians, that synagogue, that church, we consider it sacred to the Muslims too. So half of that church or synagogue to you and the other half is going to belong to us, whether you like it or not. Can the Muslims do that? The answer is no. Then how on God's green earth can the non-Muslims even sympathize a little bit for the Zionist Jews who say, well, the Zionist Jews say that sacred mosque for the Muslims is also sacred for us, so we should consider half of it for us and half of it for the Muslims. You know? Does that make sense to you? Listen here, your house. I said, you know what? That house that you brought, I consider that house sacred to me. So half of that house for you and the other half of that house for me. Whether you like it or not. Can I do that? You say no. And I agree with you. I say, why not? You say it's my house. I say, what if I want to take half of it by force? You're going to say, go to hell. Try to take it by force and I'm going to bomb you. You're going to tell me that if I try to take half of that house by force, which belongs to you, you're going to bomb me. I say, you know what? That's your God-given right. I cannot take half of something that belongs to you by force. If you want to bomb me, that's your right. That's called self-defense. That's called self-defense. Now, I'm not saying bomb the Jews. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, how can people even think about sympathizing for the Zionist Jews? That's all I'm saying. How could you even think about sympathizing for them when they want to literally take half of the Islamic mosque and they're not doing it by force, but trust me, they're doing it by force. How could you even sympathize for them? That's all I'm saying. I am not advocating for anyone to bomb every Tom, Dick, and Harry among the Jews. I am not advocating that. But how can any non-Muslim even sympathize for the Jews? That's all I'm saying. If a group of Hindu people or a group of Chinese or Russian people said, you know what, Obama, have that White House, we consider it sacred too. We're going to take half of that White House to us, whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, well, so be it. And suppose Obama said, suppose Obama told Russia, if you try taking half of the White House by force, suppose Obama told Russia, if you try taking half of the White House by force, whether you consider it sacred or not. So imagine, Obama's going to tell Russia, we don't care if you consider the White House sacred to you. If you try taking half of it by force, we're going to kill you. So you see, Obama's telling Russia, we're going to kill you if you try taking half of the White House by force. And I agree with Obama. No one should try to take the White House by force. Then how can the Jews try to take the Al-Aqsa Mosque by force? That's all we're saying. So no one should sympathize with the Zionist Jews. No one should sympathize for them. Let's sympathize for the Muslims who are being killed by US drones. Let's sympathize for the Muslims who are being bombed. Let's sympathize for the Muslims being bombed by America and their allies. Thank you and have a nice day.